Hi, welcome to Watch It Played. My name is Rodney Smith, and we're going to learn the 2 to 4 player game Quantum, designed by Eric Zimmerman and released in North America by Passport Game Studios. In Quantum, you're going to be leading one of the factions struggling for control of the energy necessary to power your quantum technology. Energy that has to be ripped straight from the core of planets themselves using your quantum cubes. So through research, tactical maneuvering, and dominance, you'll be attempting to deploy all of your quantum cubes into the sector first. So join me at the table and let's learn how to play. The game is played on a map created by these tiles, and the provided sheet gives you a variety of design options as well as tips for creating your own layouts. For a basic game, they provide 3 different options based on the number of players. We'll set up the game for 2. Each tile has a planet number, and you arrange the tiles so that the numbers are in the same position as shown on the chart. The colors of the planets don't matter. Each player picks a command sheet representing their faction, and also the dice and 5 quantum cubes of the same color. The 2 extra quantum cubes can be returned to the box as they're only used in certain map layouts. Aside from the title, color, and some of the images, the command sheets are all identical, so just pick the one that you like the look of best. Now place a die in the dominance and research boxes with the one side face up, and place your 5 quantum cubes right there. The colored dice represent your ships. You're only going to start with 3 of them in play, so take the other 2 and put them off to the side somewhere. You may be able to add them to your fleet later in the game. Each player now rolls their 3 ships. You can re-roll all of your ships if you choose, but you must keep the final result. The first player is the one with the lowest ship total. If there's a tie between players, then roll additional dice to break the tie, but don't add those new dice to your fleet. Each planet has a set number of spaces for housing quantum cubes. For example, tiles with the number 7 can hold a total of 1, and tiles showing the number 8 can hold a maximum of 2 quantum cubes. So in clockwise order, beginning with the first player, starting planets are claimed by putting one of your quantum cubes on an empty space on one of the startup planets. These starting planets are indicated on the setup diagram. All planets are surrounded by 8 spaces that can hold ships, but 4 of them are special: above, below, to the left, and right. These are marked with special squares that represent the orbital positions around a planet. In turn order, players place the 3 ships that they rolled in any of the 4 orbital positions around their starting planet. The face-up value on a die represents the kind of ship that it is, and while over the course of this video I'll sometimes change those die faces to provide you with different examples, you can't actually do that during gameplay unless you're taking an action that allows you to. So for example, your starting ships should all be showing the same values as what you rolled when determining the start player. These 2 dice are set out for combat when it occurs. Finally, the cards in the game come in 2 varieties: the darker Gambit cards and lighter command cards. These are shuffled and then placed into 2 separate face-down piles, with 3 cards dealt face-up from each. And that's the setup. In Quantum, you're trying to control the sector map by placing all of your quantum cubes from your command sheet onto the planets in front of you. As soon as you place your last quantum cube, you're immediately declared the winner. Now, the game takes place over a series of turns, and each turn is divided into 2 different phases. The first phase is the actions phase, and there are 5 different actions you can choose from, and you may complete 3 different actions during your turn. You can even take the same action more than once. But if you use less than 3 actions, they don't carry over into your next turn. So let's start by explaining the move attack action. Although you can issue this action more than once during a turn, it must always be to a different ship each time, because each ship can only move attack once per turn. Now, I mentioned that the different values on the dice represent the kind of ship that it is. For example, a 1 is a battle station and a 6 is a scout. And each of these different ships have special abilities that we'll cover a little bit later. But the values also represent the distance that these ships can move when given a move attack action. So for example, a battleship moves very slowly, but it's very powerful in combat, while a scout moves very fast, but it's very vulnerable to attacks. Ships can't move diagonally, but they can change direction as often as they want. So this frigate could move like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. You are allowed to stop before using up all of a ship's movement. Ships are not allowed to travel through or land on planets or other ships. So if I wanted to move this scout, it couldn't go like this. 1, 2, 3. It would have to go around the ship if it wanted to go in this direction. Attacks occur during a move when you place your ship halfway into the space you're attacking and the space you're attacking from. This still costs a movement point and will end that ship's movement immediately. Now you must resolve an attack against the enemy. The attacker rolls the black weapons die and adds it to their ship's value. The defender rolls the white defenses die and adds it to their ship's value. The player with the lower total value wins. And in the case of a tie, like here, the attacker wins. When the attacker wins a fight, the defender's ship is removed from the board, re-rolled, and placed in the scrapyard on that player's command sheet. Then the attacker may choose to move into the defender's space or move back into the square which they attacked from. Then the attacker spins up the value on their dominance box by 1. And the defender loses 1 dominance, but you can never go less than 1, so in this case, the blue player doesn't lose any dominance. When your dominance reaches 6, you immediately place a quantum cube from your color on any planet with an empty space that doesn't already have one of your quantum cubes. So this means you can never have more than one of your quantum cubes on a single planet. After placing the cube, then reset your dominance die to 1. You'll be able to advance it again the very next time you win combat as the attacker. If this had been the result of the combat roll, then the defender having the lowest combined value would have won. If the defender wins a battle, no ships are destroyed and dominance is not affected. Instead, the attacker is repelled back into the space they attacked from. As you can see, there's very little risk to the attacker. But now let's talk about the Reconfigure action. This allows you to take any one of your ships in play, either on the sector board or in your scrapyard, and then re-roll it. If you happen to re-roll the same value that you already had, then you re-roll again until you get a new value. And then you put the die back to where it came from, either to the sector map and the position it was in, or back to the scrapyard. Remember these 2 expansion dice. These are not considered in play yet, so you can't give them any kinds of actions. Now let's pretend that the Orion Republic has a ship in their scrapyard. This player can now use a deploy action to take any single ship from their scrapyard and place it into an empty orbital position around any planet where they've already placed a quantum cube. So this ship could go into either of these 2 spaces or into any one of the 4 orbital positions around this planet. Deploying a ship doesn't count against its 1 move during a turn, so as a separate action, you could issue a move attack action to a freshly deployed ship. A player can use the research action to simply add 1 to the value of the die in the research box of their command sheet. And remember, when choosing your 3 actions for a turn, you can choose the same one more than once, so you could potentially level your research die several times during a single turn. But the highest it can go is to level 6. And the lowest is level 1. But a research level of 6 will allow you to collect a card during the second phase of your turn, which we'll see in a moment. Finally, we have the Construct a Quantum Cube action. This is the other way you can get quantum cubes from your command sheet onto the planets of the sector map. But this action takes up 2 actions. So if you've already used 2 actions this turn, you won't be able to construct a quantum cube. And there are some other requirements as well. To construct a cube on a planet, in addition to having 2 actions to spare, you must have ships in orbital positions around the planet which exactly add up to the planet number showing on the tile. You can ignore other faction ships and all ships in non-orbital positions. So in this case, the Orion Republic can't construct a cube because it has too many points on its ships in the orbital positions. But if things were slightly rearranged, let's say like this, then they could construct a cube because their ships in orbital position now show a total value of 8. You can ignore this non-orbital ship as well as all other faction dice. So now the player can spend 2 actions to place a cube on an empty space, so long as they don't already have a cube on that planet. But you can place a cube on a planet that has another faction's cubes already there. After taking up to 3 actions, you move on to the Advance Cards phase. Here, for each quantum cube you were able to place during your action phase, you'll be able to draw one of the face-up cards, immediately replacing it with the top card of the corresponding deck. So if you placed 2 quantum cubes, you'll be collecting 2 cards. Also, if your research die is at level 6, immediately spin it down to level 1 and collect a card for that as well. If you draw a darker Gambit card, resolve its effect immediately and discard it. For example, the expansion Gambit adds an expansion ship to your fleet. This is one of the 2 that you set aside at the beginning of the game. Once you have both of your expansion ships out, you won't be able to take additional expansion Gambits. The lighter command cards give you permanent abilities. When claimed, place it in one of the 3 open slots beside your command sheet. At most, you can only have 3 command cards installed at any one time. So if you draw a 4th card, you will need to discard one of your previous 3. And newly added command cards don't become active until the next player's turn. You may also spend one of your draws to discard all 6 face-up cards and immediately replace them, but this will use up one of the draws you were owed for that turn. And should you run out of cards in a deck, simply shuffle the discard pile to create a new deck to draw from. Now, I had mentioned that the face-up value showing on a die indicates that ship's type. For example, a 1 was a battle station and a 6 was a scout. Now, each of these different types also has a special ability. And for every one of your ships on the map, you may activate its special ability once during your turn for free. It doesn't take up an action. Now, this doesn't include the ships that are in your scrapyard or those that you haven't added to your fleet yet. So let's go through each of the different ships and I'll explain how their special abilities work. Let's start with the 6, which is a scout. This has the free Reconfigure ability. So you can choose during your turn to pick it up, re-roll it, and then place it back in its position. If you happen to re-roll the same number, then you keep re-rolling until you get a new ship type. Be aware though, you can't change a ship's value in the middle of a move. So for example, I couldn't move this ship 3 spaces and then choose to reconfigure it just before I go into combat trying to get a more advantageous number. Remember, lower values are better when you're in combat. Also, you can only use a die for its ability once during a turn. So I couldn't reconfigure this ship, turn it into a new ship, and then use the ability of that new ship because I've already used the ability of this die during my turn. So sometimes I rotate the ship after using its ability as a reminder and then rotate all of my ships back to their normal position at turn's end. The 5 is an Interceptor, and when giving it a move attack action, you can choose to activate its ability to allow it to move diagonally as well. You can even attack diagonally. The 4 is a Frigate, and this is a very versatile ship because you can choose to change it from its 4 side to either a 3 or to a 5. But again, you can't change it to a 5 and then start moving it diagonally using its new Interceptor ability, because you already used an ability with this ship this turn. The 3 is a destroyer, and it has a warp ability that allows it to switch places with any other ship from its faction. And this warp doesn't cause it to use up its 1 move per turn. You could still issue it a move attack action. In the game, when a die is next to another die, it means directly adjacent, either side by side or above and below, but not diagonally. So for example, this 2 is a Flagship, and it's next to an Interceptor. Alternatively, a die can be in surrounding spaces. This means any space adjacent, including diagonally. So the destroyer is in one of the surrounding spaces of this Flagship that has the transport ability. And this can be activated as part of a move action assigned to the Flagship. But you will not be able to attack with the Flagship if you choose to use its ability. To transport, pick up any one of your ships in the surrounding space of your Flagship and place it on top of the Flagship. Then use the Flagship's move action to go 1 or 2 spaces. Then drop the transported ship in any empty surrounding space. The dropped-off ship cannot be put in a space with an enemy to start an attack, but you may still issue a move attack action to the transported ship. But look at what we've set up here with just 1 action. You notice the planet number is 8, and the value of our ships in orbital position is 9. That's 1 too many. But now I'll use the special ability of the Frigate to change it from a 4 to a 3. That doesn't use up an action, so I still have the 2 actions necessary to construct a quantum cube on this planet. The 1, which is a battle station, can take a free move attack action, as long as that action includes an attack. You can't simply move into an adjacent empty space. Now, although a ship can't normally be assigned more than 1 move attack action per turn, the battle station's free move attack ability doesn't count against this. So that's all of the special abilities for the different ships. And the great thing about all of the rules we've discussed so far is that the majority of them are summarized right on your command sheet. Here are the different ship abilities, as well as a breakdown for a turn, including the 5 different actions you can choose to take. There's also reminders for dominance and research. So as long as you understand how the game works, which hopefully this video has helped with, then there should be very little you need to memorize in order to play the game. And although these are called command sheets, I think it's worth noting they're really command boards, as you can hear. Now there's just a few other rules I want to go over. For example, after you've taken 3 actions during your action phase, your turn isn't necessarily over just because you don't have any cards to collect. For example, you may have some special abilities of ships that you want to activate, or special abilities on cards. So your turn isn't over really until there's nothing else you can do, or once you say you're done. Also, if a card power lets you move a ship a second time, like Energetic does, you still can't use the ship's ability more than once. For example, if I activated the Interceptor's ability so I could move it diagonally up here and then attack this ship, if I give it another move attack action, I can't move it diagonally again because I've already used this ship's ability. Powers you have that happen once per turn can only be used during your turn, not during other players' turns. Some powers let you re-roll dice. If this happens during combat, then both players roll their dice first, and then any re-rolls are conducted. If both players can re-roll, the attacker decides first whether or not to re-roll their die, and then the defender does the same. But whatever your final result is, that's what you have to keep. Now, if you own the first edition of Quantum, the designer did make a few changes, and I just want to go over those quickly now. Some of the map setup options provided with the game have been modified, and I'll put a link to those updates in the description of this video. The Curious Command card says that each turn you get 1 extra move action for free as long as you don't use it to attack. This has been modified so that you only get the extra move if you conducted no attacks during your entire turn. Finally, we have the introduction of the Quantum Entanglement rule. Now you'll remember I said you can't install one of your quantum cubes to a planet where you already have one of your cubes. That's still true unless that planet is the only one left available for you to put your cubes on. Maybe towards the end of the game, all of the other planets are filled up. Let me show you an example of this and you'll see what I mean. Here's a rather oddly constructed custom 2-player map, but let's just ignore that part for a moment and instead notice that the Orion Republic, the yellow player, has only 1 space left that they could construct a quantum cube on. All the other planets are full. So in this situation, placing a second quantum cube on this planet, where they already have one, would be allowed. But when doing so, they must now add 3 to the planet number for every quantum cube they already have on that planet. So instead of a total of 8 on the ships in orbital positions around this planet, they would need a total of 11. Then they could spend 2 actions to construct a quantum cube. They could have also placed the cube here if their dominance had reached 6, and once again, all other available planets were full. Now some of you might remember, during the setup, I took 2 of the quantum cubes from each faction and returned them to the box. Now that's because those are used during some of the more advanced maps that allow for a longer game. Because obviously if you have more quantum cubes to place, it's going to take you longer to do it. Well, that's everything you need to know to play Quantum. If you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to put them in the comments below and I'll gladly answer them as soon as I get a chance. And if we get a few questions more commonly, I'll just add those directly to the description of this video, so you might want to check there. And please consider subscribing to our channel because in future episodes, we're going to actually play through Quantum so you can really see how the game works and also participate in the gameplay yourself. But until the next episode, thanks for watching.